we're going to be doing TTRPGs from pre-K to college, different age, same concept. So we're going to start off with just like a little bit of introduction about ourselves, and we have a couple slides to guide us. But other than that, it's mostly going to be kind of a Q&A, us sharing our experiences and talking about how designing games for pre-K kids and designing games for college kids and adults is not actually that different from what you'd think it would be and why. So, I'm Steph Campbell. So I run the TTRPGkids website. I'm a former airbag engineer and engineering professor, and I am a parent of a 6, almost 7-year-old. So I kind of have a lot of people have experience in the like tween teen kind of range. I have some experience there, but most of mine is in the like really young kids. Like I've worked with a few pre-K teachers designing games for their classes, and then have also used TTRPG elements in the college courses that I have taught. So it's kind of like the two ends of the spectrum, and then I'm kind of like picking up the stuff in the middle as I'm going. So, and then Jennifer.
Yes. So my name is Jennifer Genova. I am a seventh grade social studies teacher. I am also part of educational collaborative called Gaming the Systems. You may have seen the fabulous teal T-shirts that we've been wearing around. It's our first ever merch. We're really excited about it. And I come around to a lot of events like this and talk about games and gaming in the classroom. My experience with TTRPGs is largely infusing them into my seventh grade social studies curriculum and running existing games as part of an after school club and some summer programming.
My name is Katie Lear. I am a children's therapist based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and my specialty is childhood anxiety and OCD. And because OCD symptoms typically become apparent in like the late middle childhood and tween years, I tend to see children starting around age 8 and going up to about age 16 in my practice. So I am kind of straddling that tween teen divide that Steph was talking about. That is where most of my experience is clinically. And when I am not in the office, I am working on my second business, which is Young Dragon Slayers. It's an online inclusive Dungeons and Dragons program for children ages 10 to 18. So also kind of in this tween teen age range. Young Dragon Slayers was born out of my therapy practice, so there was a lot of overlap originally between kids I was seeing in office and kids I was seeing online. It has now fully morphed into its own entity, where we are running at this point between 22 and 24 groups a week this summer. We're waiting on a few RSVPs right now to determine that number, but it has really become its own beast in and of itself. So I've learned a lot about the different needs of our older groups versus our younger. And I'm the mom of a 4-year-old, so I'm in that world too, but I have not dared to play TTRPGs yet with my son. But maybe after this I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, does everyone here know what a TTRPG is? Okay, I'm seeing lots of nods, so I will go through the quick one. For this talk, we're going to define it as a tabletop role-playing game that has some element of collaborative storytelling. Takes place in fiction. There is an element of chance. This can be choose your own adventure. It can be dice. It can be cards. It can be pulling colored tokens out of a cup. And we're going to have it be cooperative. So I know that there can be some like PvP kind of style role-playing games. We're going to talk about the cooperative ones here. And a lot of people know about D&D Pathfinder. Some other ones is Avatar Legends, Inspirals, and there's like a ton of indie games. There's thousands and thousands out there. So lots of cool ones that we can get into. And when we're looking at what these teach, like it's a plethora of skills. And what I think we would like to do here is talk about some of our experiences with this, what we've taught with it, and just kind of how we have seen differences in like how different ages have handled certain subjects and material. So did either of you want to start or?
Go ahead.
I would.
Yeah.
Can I jump down to social emotional learning because I'm not a math person
100%.
myself.
This is just like random smattering
Yeah.
subjects. So.
So I would say I have seen the biggest strides in kids in these games in the areas of social emotional learning, and then I would also kind of say confidence and leadership and creativity as a subset of that. My first experiences with D&D were as a player, and it became very clear to me very quickly that baked into the game of D&D, and I think most TTRPGs as well, are skills like empathy, perspective taking, collaboration, creative problem solving, understanding that other people may have different motivations or different strengths and weaknesses than you, and really appreciating that in the setting of the game. That because everybody is coming with a specific set of strengths and weaknesses at the table and advantages and disadvantages, there are clearly times when you will be the best person for a job or somebody else might be. So it has always felt like a really safe way for children to explore social skills and social dynamics in a way that is compelling but also low stakes, because you always have this plausible deniability of like it was what your character did and not you. And as a therapist, I'm also really interested in helping children broaden their repertoire of skills or broaden their repertoire of ways that they can show up in social situations. And I also think that being able to create a character that includes parts of yourself but is not entirely like yourself can often give children permission to broaden those roles. And I have heard reports from parents that the things that they are practicing at the table with us are sometimes generalizing out of groups into their interactions with other people. So I think one that I brought up probably last year and we'll bring up again was a group had created a character named Clyde in a fairy tale inspired campaign, and Clyde was like the child of Prince Charming in like kind of a descendant sort of a way. In a Curse of Strahd campaign, it was very complicated, but Clyde was very, high charisma, very charming, extremely confident in a group of teenagers who did not necessarily always feel that way. And they all sort of created this term of like, I channeled Clyde this week, or like, like I found my inner Clyde when they wanted to ask kids out at school. So like they would come in and be like, I did it. I asked this kid to prom. Like Clyde was there, man. And Clyde became this sort of shorthand for this set of skills that they had learned that they could kind of put on as need be. And my hope is that what starts as feeling like something put on becomes more innate over time. So I don't know, I think about Clyde a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I like that it gives like kind of it's like an inside language.
Yes.
So I'm a big Star Trek fan, and one of my favorite episodes was Darmok and Gelada Tanagra.
Yeah.
And like we will do
Yeah.
that, like my like partner and I and my family. It's just like movie quotes, like here and there,
Yeah.
and like it happens at like D&D or tabletop RPG tables too. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think what I have seen with like comparing social emotional learning from the pre-K kids and then college students. So the college class that I taught was an intro to engineering course for engineering freshmen. So they're coming out of high school. It's their first semester in college for most of them. And it was very focused on a combination of engineering soft skills like being able to give a PowerPoint about a technical subject or write a report. Very focused on like communication. And then there was a section on engineering ethics, and that always like you could tell it made everybody kind of uncomfortable when we got to that, because it's like, oh, here's a case. What kind of decision do you make? And they start kind of arguing with each other, and you can see where um, some treated it like a debate and actually having a discussion, whereas others did turn it more into like an argument or like kind of taking it a little bit personally. But if we have it in the frame of after this class, we're going to journal about what our character learned, because I had them make a character that they were following along through the class, and each lesson was connected into the story for their character. So they were journaling, what did my character learn? It gave enough of a separation, or like I could say, okay, so you're having this argument or this discussion, let's embody your character and come at it from their perspective, and it gives enough of a distance from the topic to let them go more into a discussion. Like they can take themselves one step back, so they're not just reacting, they have to think about what would this character do. And so they have to be kind of conscious of how they're responding to things. When you look at like pre-K kids, it's like really similar. Um, and I've used the exact same mechanism with my child. So I started playing tabletop RPGs with my kid when he was 2.5 years old, and kiddo is 6 now, and so it's just kind of like, okay, we're having an argument. My child is very argumentative, and very like willing to share his thoughts on certain things, um, ranging from why he should be able to color on the walls to like, I don't like this for dinner. Dinner is yucky. And we're like, okay, well, we have like safe option dinner. Do you want that? No, I don't feel like it. I mean, you got to eat something, kind of thing. And so, like, it kind of starts to ramp up, and we will say, okay, so how would Sandy the dragon handle this? And we can take that step back, and it's the exact same thing as what happens in the college class. It's just framed a little bit differently, like there's a different flavor on it. So there's, you know, a little bit of difference, but it is the same concept between the two. So
You definitely see the same thing, I think, in middle school, which is interesting. So I use TTRPGs to teach content. Um, and I find in my practice, they are most effective when we are teaching processes. And, like, so for example, one of the things that I've used a role playing game to teach is we're talking about the trans Saharan trade routes and the process of trade and growth and the benefits and drawbacks of international collaboration and competition, which for middle schoolers became, I want the gold and all of the gold, please, thank you, and you're welcome. And then we learned very quickly that we can't eat gold. So we're learning like a decision making process, but also understanding why civilizations like made the choices that they made and the circumstances that limited choice. I don't know if any of you have experience with middle schoolers, but they think that they are Superman mixed with Marie Curie with a side order of like Teddy Roosevelt. Like their thought of their own skill set is quite out of whack. Um, I wouldn't have, been conscripted to join the British Army. Oh, I would have just punched them in the face. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's fun that you say that. In a TTRPG setting, I think it's very similar to what Katie and Steph were bringing up. Because they're playing a character, their actions are not about preserving their own ego. And it's like, so we don't have that I have to preserve myself. It's like, this is what's happening with this character. So we have a game where they are playing trade representatives of these different groups that are around a desert that is legally distinct from the Sahara Desert, I promise. And they're all trying to figure this out, and they learn really, really quickly that you can't just brute force your way through all of these other civilizations. And so it's a way to have them practice something and challenge a misconception, but because they had to go through it in a role play scenario, they like deeply understand why they had to do what they did, right? They feel the devastation of not being able to be the richest, most shiny big boy all the time, but they also understand like, oh, like you try to attack me and take all of my stuff. Like, we're not having diplomatic relations anymore. And now that's actually a problem. It's a problem that we have a geopolitical closeness and we have this conflict. Oh, look, let's open the history book and look at what actually happened at this time. Another time that I use them that I think is really, really effective is when we are engaging in content that is a little bit challenging. The first unit of 7th grade is world religions. Yeah, right? Easy. We've been in school 4 days, right? They're 12. I'm this. You know, it's just totally low stakes, right? Nobody has any controversial thoughts, feelings, or opinions. It can be really hard, and in the town where I teach, there is quite a bit of diversity, and then there's also the contingency of people that refuse to acknowledge that there's quite a bit of diversity. So we have quite a few students who come from religious minorities who are very used to being the token insert word here. And so I have turned that unit into a role playing game where all of the students are crash landed on a deserted island with a mysterious temple at the middle, and they have to read and watch videos and interact with sacred stories to figure out what religion the temple is. That way, nobody in the room is like, yes, I am apparently the representative of Greek or all Greek Orthodox practicing people. That's great. I'm 12, right? And it's a way to turn the temperature down and remove some of the barriers that students might have when learning about a topic that might be fraught for them for whatever reason. I mean, considering like existential issues when you're, mid-pubescent isn't exactly like a long-term strategy for joy and happiness. And I find that like putting it in a TTRPG form really reduces the stakes, and everyone is on an even playing field because everyone is crash landed on the island and has to save the town from the sorceress so that the people can remember and their memories are restored. And if they fail to like go through the process, the critical thinking process, the evidence gathering process, the corroboration process, the only stake of failure is that they have to run the cursed Starbucks on the island and make the evil sorceress's coffee every morning. It's me, I'm the sorceress. Right? So failing is not, oh my gosh, I've offended someone, or, oh my gosh, my parents are going to be upset with me because of whatever, like, our sort of religious culture is at home. It's, I'm running a cursed Starbucks, ha ha, he he. And then they all get to say how they'll like enact their petty revenge against the sorceress by messing up her coffee order. And it's fine. And like, we have a low temperature, we've removed a lot of those emotional barriers to learning, and they're actually able to make progress.
And I think that that's like a good, like looking at maybe like risk reward.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the like college course, I run into a lot of situations where if they're in college, they have gone through some level of education and been able to get into a college, and there's usually like a high percentage of high achievers or people who are like think that they are maybe like the best of the best, and like I will come into the class and like one of the first assignments is a very short essay about their goals, and at least half the class would write about their past successes instead of about their future goals. And so, and that's a large percentage of the class. And the ones that write about their future goals, there's usually a couple of them that actually follow the assignment, and then a lot that kind of stray and meander and just talk about engineering in general and nothing about like their personal stake in this. And so when half of them are talking about their past goals, they are focused on success, getting an A. They think that they will succeed because they are the best in the class, but they're also used to being the best in their particular class. And now there's a whole bunch of other students who were the best in their classes all in the same room, and you can't all be the best in the class. So when it is through the frame of a character, it's your character has failed, and you can experience what failure is like without having those stakes being so high,
Yeah.
or feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to fail this class if I don't do this. It is, my character will have some kind of consequence to their career path that we're following throughout the course, and I can see how that might play out in real time, and then also how that engineer character bounces back and they get laid off from their job. Okay, well, they can go look for a new job. It's not the end of the world. And so you can start playing with kind of the risk reward element of it and building that resilience. And then bouncing that over to my kiddo and the pre-K games. I mean, my kiddo went through a phase where we're like, oh, let's color the picture. And he's like, I don't want to color ever again. And I'm like, what happened here? Because this is one of our favorite activities. And he's like, my friend at school said that I colored the flower wrong and it went outside and then I'm bad at coloring and I'm like, buddy, it's okay. But there was like a social element of feeling of failure. And so I'm like, you get down on kiddo's level, you talk it out. It's still frustrating and it's mom saying it's going to be okay. Whereas the next game that we played, our character had a friend who criticized them on something, and then we played out Kato's character kind of bouncing out, very gentle with it. So it's not like going to amp up to the same level. We did that a couple times, and then I'm like, hey, do you want to try coloring our character that we've been playing? Like, we'll draw the picture out and try coloring. And I was like, yeah, I guess okay. And like, it just kind of builds up that little bit of resistance or resilience. By kind of testing the waters in the fiction.
I think that that's like such a really important point to bring up because that is something that I see analogous at like every age level. Like even when I, as an adult, have played TTRPGs, right? Like I'm with usually a group of people that I don't know super great. Like I did some streaming and stuff during COVID. Like I've met new people, and it is a way to try out different ways of solving social problems in different settings where the like again the stakes of not being successful are relatively low and I think in middle school that is such a really rich place for this type of gaming because so many kids are in that like ego protective phase of like I have to look and appear and I want everyone to think this about me but I don't know how to be that thing but I know that that's the thing that I should be but I don't know how to do it yet because I actually don't know how to do anything because I'm 12 and they're so mixed up and they're in that phase where like if they don't know what to do so they do whatever they saw someone do on TikTok. Mm-hmm. But what they don't realize is that that person who was dancing at the top of the subway stairs at rush hour got punched in the face as soon as they put the phone down. Like they don't understand all of that. And so in a TTRPG, like you can work through a social problem like that where they don't have to live any of the real consequences and can see like, oh, you went up and insulted the guard and the guard didn't let you into the tower. Yup. That's why we don't do that in the world.
A natural consequence.
Yep, yeah. That's why we don't do that. If you come up to me and like are mean to me during our whole lesson and then ask me to let you go to lunch 2 minutes early so you can grab your sweatshirt, I'm going to say no to you because that's not how the social contract works. Right? Like, and it, like those implicit social rules and expectations, I think TTRPGs are so great for helping kids with that.
And making them a little more explicit as well. Like, even for me as an adult, I think playing, I fall into that trap sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, I encounter adversity once, I'm like, guess it's over.
Yep.
Like, I guess this friendship is done. This business venture has failed. Uh-huh. Like, very hard for me in real life because we don't have that structure of understanding that the game will continue and having a very discrete list of options to sometimes know what the way forward is. I do think it's great practice at having like a list of these are the strategies you can try. These are the abilities you have. Not sure what to do next? Here's a menu of explicit options for you. And even when you do fail, there's this implicit understanding that the game is going to continue on, right? Whereas in real life, it doesn't always feel that way. So I know I'm on like the educator side of the convention right now, but like I would imagine that things like growth mindset and frustration tolerance are struggles for educators just like they are for therapists. Those are two of the big presenting issues that people come in to therapy with. I want to help my child with frustration tolerance. I want to help my child develop growth mindset. And I think sometimes when parents say growth mindset, they mean grow into an A achieving student, which is not always, I don't know if that's a thing for you guys of like, well, growth mindset is really just about like progress, but I do think that TTRPGs are great at showing paths forward in a way that is a little clearer than it always feels in daily life.
Yeah.
And encouraging players to intuit, okay, now we have a new guard. Let's all talk about what could we do. Well, last time Dave walked up and punched him in the face and got arrested and we had to break him out of jail. Dave, come on, right? You know, like, and a lot of times, like, it's that slowing down, also ethic impulsivity with like, and delayed gratification, like a lot of those skills that we see. Tell me you're, I work in middle school without telling you I work in middle school. But like a lot of that, like they're social skills, but they're also critical thinking skills. I'm in a situation, let's think about what the power dynamics are here. How can I get what I need with the least amount of conflict and upset? Like, that's a life skill. We all have to do that all of the time. Something is bad at the airport. Who do I talk to get what I need without, like, things becoming a problem? And how do I sort of navigate that situation? It takes an awful lot of nuance, and TTRPGs are a great way to practice some of those skills.
There was a student that I this is like a bit of a mentorship role at university, and she took this one professor who I was like, you probably don't want to take this professor because I know that the first paper, he's a philosophy professor, and his goal with the first paper is to give everyone a bad grade and then let them redo it because he's trying to teach them a lesson in failure and then have that as a discussion point for the course. And learning to deal with failure can be a good thing and tends to be a skill that I have seen many adult students lack. Springing that on them without warning can be absolutely devastating. And the student was having an existential crisis over this failed paper and could not see that it said redo the paper and you can get 90% of the points back. Like, she saw that she failed the paper and was like locked in on that one particular thing. It took about a week before she could even touch the paper again. And I understand why. Like, we talked through like kind of some history and things like that about what was going on. And she eventually was able to get back into the paper. I have also seen her play Dungeons and Dragons, and the first few sessions was very similar to that. It was decision paralysis, not wanting to roll the dice, not wanting to make any kind of decision or speak up. She had a charisma-based rogue, which that puts you in a position of doing a lot of really difficult conversations and needing to think on your feet a lot. And when I saw the character, I was like, okay, we're going hard mode here. Like, it was first time playing the game, and I'm like, I appreciate the type of character you're trying to do, but I'm also like, we'll see how this goes. And it took several sessions before, and it was like very slow walking in, of let's have a really easy conversation. Let's go through here. We got a bad roll. The anxiety like spiked up, and we need to have like a chat and whatnot. But it slowly eased up over time, and that tolerance to having some kind of failure or being able to deal with something that just didn't go perfectly as planned started to build up largely because of the game. And this is adult skill, like kind of building stuff. So if you can introduce this earlier, like this is one of the goals with my child, is I want to make sure, I will get your question too. So I want to make sure with my child that he has this like skill set, because like I know from my personal experience and then also from the student how important that is and what it can feel like to not have that be taught to you or be encouraged. So that's like one of the really big things, is that just having the life skill of saying like, this will continue on, there are options, and looking at it past that initial like, oh my,
They're gonna fail.
yeah,
They're gonna fail.
yeah,
It's also like, this is like wicked educator inside baseball. It's not the point of this, but like, tell me your grades don't mean anything without telling me your grades don't mean anything,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're telling me that if you've never met someone at a college level who can meet the standards and expectations of your class, I don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to help you. Sorry, I have a lot of feels about the purpose of grading and talk about ego protection, but that's another conference for another day. But I think that brings up a great point, though. Like when we're talking about skill development and older students, like, I mean, in middle school, like I haven't had a massive amount of pushback for game-based education, but just because like someone has gotten into a college, like it does not necessarily mean that they have these social soft skills, right? It means that they're probably quite academically gifted, which is great. A type of learning comes easy to them, and you can anxiety your way into success, right? But you still need that practice of some of those complex emotional regulation skills, self-management skills, sequencing skills, executive functioning skills. Just because you're taking a high-level engineering and philosophy class does not mean that you don't need this explicit practice. Like a lot of times at my level, we run into kids who hit a wall in middle school because they're like maladaptive work habits have like run out and they're coming up against a type of academic work that is asking them to demonstrate skills that they don't actually have. They've just found ways to kind of brute force it. Like I was a person who could always like do the paper 45 minutes before the class happened, but then I got to grad school and I was like, oh, I actually have to learn some semblance of time management because I've just not slept for 6 days and that's a problem, right? Some like people that we've all met people, right? Like you see people in the workplace who like their personality can no longer mask their lack of skill set or whatever. Like doesn't mean that something like a TTRPG is like too kiddish or whatever if your audience needs to work on those skills and would benefit from them.
Do you find that like maybe the more high functioning or people who are on the higher achieving side of things potentially struggle with the transition into like a TTRPG where it's like if this is no longer my traditional, like I have the formula figured out for how to get my A and do it like this, and so now that I'm having to actually critically think and put myself in a different scenario, I'm just curious in terms of like the spectrum, the bell curve of students, like do we find that usually the trickiest people to fold in would be the higher side of the group?
I think when I find in middle school, and I'm sorry to cut both of you, just didn't even look. But the two groups that have had the hardest time, and I think it's why I'm never going to stop doing it in my class, is because it's the groups of high academic achievers and kids who already have high levels of social power in school as it exists. So if you're dealing with kids who are already extremely popular and have a lot of social cachet, they will have a very hard time flipping to this, I have found, especially in middle school, because those are the things that they sort of lean on, right? Those are the things that they can use to sort of ease their way a little bit. And now we're in a TTRPG scenario where you've got to work with a different set of constraints, and you don't get to lean on those power dynamics that have always served you, and you can't just stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning and write an essay till it's perfect. And I think it's really good for those types of students to have to think and problem solve in different ways. Like there's nothing better than seeing like your 4-season athlete, jock, everybody loves them, National Junior Honor Society, like a kid who is just the kid, right? Have to turn to the goth, like anime nerd who like is allergic to running and skips PE every opportunity and be like, how do you think we should attack how do you think we can get the guard to let us into the tower? Like because they need that person, that's huge, right? Because in life, you're going to be in a world where like you might not be able to rely on that, and the person that you report to might have been a goth kid that you're going to have to figure it out.
I There's a couple points I have here, but I would like to I want to defer to you for. No, you're totally fine. I just want to make sure like I'm flipping back and forth. But I have this comic that I had found that I think really displays it properly. So who here is familiar with Baldur's Gate 3? Okay, so quite a few people in the room. So Astarion is like, he can't jump. So he like I think has the worst jumping distance out of the whole group unless you mess with his stats pretty good. But Karlak can jump really high. So I got very nice chest, but I won't jump that high. Behind me, soldier, she just jumps up. Oh right, I don't know how to pick locks. So how's it going? Wait a second, I have an idea. Oh dear, what a brilliant idea. Because Karlak's got like massive strength. You can just like carry the chest down. And it's like, by the way, I saw a few more nice things. Definitely not owned by anyone in chest nearby. Yay! And so it's like, but that teamwork back and forth, like everybody has a skill set. And so you see that displayed in the game. And then that can translate very directly into real life about relying on others for their skills. So you're not just like lone wolfing it. Like talking about like the high achievers, a lot of them have soloed their journey, and it's that hyper independence kind of mindset. And then the class I was teaching, you have to be on projects, and like there was one team that I got a complaint from every single one of them, and they all said they're doing all the work on the project. And I was like, okay now. So and so I like am messaging them separately, and I'm like secretly like laughing a little bit, and like one of them's like IMing me while I'm getting emails from the other, and I'm just like I started crying. Like I was actually laughing so hard because they were each doing the project separately and not talking to each other because they wanted it exactly their way and could not compromise with the other two people on their team. And so like it was I was like I eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to send a message to the whole group, and I'm going to leave it anonymous who has like reported this, like is the way I put it. And so I messaged him, I'm like, okay, so what are your times that you can meet? How about you meet here? And send me a progress report after. I need one report from the whole team and one diagram. And then they were able to do it, but they needed like that guiding hand. But it was like the lack of teamwork skills. But then TTRPGs, like you have to work together. So it's, anyway, that's one of a few stories. But did you have any examples for
like a teamworky situation?
Yeah.
I think something that I have noticed about early players, and I feel like there are many reasons for this. I know Marianne has talked about this at times too. Oftentimes, teen players in particular, when they come in with their first character, it's a character that needs no one, has no one, a hyper individualist, kind of a lone wolf. If it's a teenage therapy group, not a living parent in anybody's backstory, because we're in our full like individuation era of like, who am I as a person, right? So like you'll get a group of like 5 orphans, or at least in my experience in the games I've been a part of, a lot of these very like, I have no ties, I know and need and like no one, and like we've kind of set some boundaries in our games about like your player needs to have your character needs to have a reason to be with this group, because coming in with this sort of like the character that would make a great anti-hero in a movie is not a particularly compelling D&D character in a group context, because people need a reason to keep you with them, to keep you around. And in a team-based game, needing no one, having no one, wanting no reason to have social bonds is not as compelling and edgy as one thinks it is going to be. So I've seen that kind of evolve over time, of like initial characters when somebody joins a group versus their third campaign, being much more relational and much more interested in bringing other characters' backstories into their own backstory. I have also found that in our groups with neurodivergent players, having a set of things that are your things that you can do well, whether you are socially anxious, whether you are autistic, whether you are, for whatever reason, hesitant to join the group, is very empowering, because you know that it's going to be received well by others, and you're being told already, you know that you're good at these things. I find it makes it easier for me to come into a game knowing what I can do well. Yeah.
I have another question, then maybe this is getting into like the nitty gritty, and is like in terms of like character creations, right? Like there's a lot of different ways to create characters. And I guess in my D&D experience, we've done a lot of like you roll for your stats and stuff like that. But even in the variety of that, as adults at the table, I can be really bummed out if I've got like 2 negative stats, right? And then here's Johnny Barbarian, who's got like an 18 strength. So I guess I'm just curious in terms of like an education or a therapy session, what are the ways that you help people create characters to have a little bit more of like a balanced dynamic? Because I get frustrated at that as a 30-year-old person, and I can only imagine if I'm coming to the table with extra hormones and everything flaring, of like, if you're always, I mean, everyone's gonna get the nat 20, that's gonna be awesome regardless, but like if you're adding +5 to all of your rolls and I'm subtracting 3 from at least 2 of mine, like that's not going to breed, it might breed resilience or it might breed resentment. So I'm just curious, like, what do you guys do for character creation?
There's so I tend to not use like Dungeons and Dragons or like the roll for stats for a lot of the games that I do, because you can get into like power levely kind of players who know the system. And so the adult players that I play with, many of them are engineers and accountants.
Yeah.
And they are all highly intelligent, and very like bookish. And I tend to run a more role play kind of session, which can be challenging for some folks, and I understand why. But like, I have my play style, and they have said they have wanted me as the GM, and so we're gonna do that. And they're like very adamant about, I'm gonna roll for my stats, I'm gonna keep it where it is, I'm not gonna re-roll anything, and they're like, we're following the rules, and we still have fun. And what we do is, failure can be fun and it can be funny. So it depends on how you spin it with your story. And I have seen a lot of growth in some of those players when you ask them, okay, so you had another failed hit. This is the 5th one in a row, and your dude is they're not getting bad rolls. They just can't hit the thing that they're really trying. Can you explain why you keep hitting it? And then also, what does this look like? And they're like, oh, well, they're just going up there and they're actually just banging their head against the door. And I'm like, okay. And so we get this really funny image of like, he started out trying to pick the lock, but like the group turns around and he's just like smacking his head on the door, and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, sorry, I blacked out there for a second. What's going on? And so like, it turned into this kind of funny moment, even though there were all the like bad rolls, and it kind of became a little bit of a running joke of like, oh, let's go have this person go pick the lock, and they're like, let's make sure we have a really good plan for distracting the folks out there. And it became like, and then it became like funny, but I had to sort of like spin it as the GM towards that, and the campaign got a little slapsticky, and that tended to be the tone instead of it being like very crunchy. But it took work to kind of get to that point. When I have one that I will maybe bring up later. I have an example that I want to bring up, but I might save it for like a different discussion point. So I'm going to pass it over here.
When we do after school club, we use standard array.
That's all I got, man.
And
Yeah.
and when I make stuff for my classroom, I also don't use Dungeons and Dragons, because like the character creation like onboarding process, which is like so great if you want to play D&D, is not great if I'm using D&D to get you in to talk about trade dynamics. I will have fixed stat blocks. Yeah. You can flavor your character however you want. I'll usually have like 4 to 6 role ideas, and they have a fixed stat block. So like if you're the archaeologist, you're the archaeologist, and you're the archaeologist, your stats will be the same. You can flavor your character whatever way you would like. pick your moves or whatever I've done. But I find that taking that out, because like it also like you're inviting your min maxers, and then it's
Yeah.
like it's like part of this that's also great is that the kids who are min maxers have to learn to let go of control a little bit. And so I find, and then of course I get to hold on to control, which is totally good. It's good. It's good for me to feel that way about things. But I get to sort of like set like this is not going to be what we're doing because it takes away from our purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we've got many groups running with many DMs, and so I am sure that they have different approaches to this. But at least in our we have a standard issue instructional video walking our new players through D&D Beyond and how to create their character, because it is very labor intensive. And
Yeah.
at least our standard recommendation in that YouTube video for those who choose to watch it is standard array. I
Yeah.
think because it does regulate things a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's easier. I prefer it. But I'm sure we get plenty of min-maxers, and I also think that those dynamics tend to come out in other ways, if not
Yeah.
around character creation, around who's taking up the most space in a group, who has more experience playing, who is more interested in optimizing for the sake of
Yeah.
optimizing over backstory or what serves a character. So, yeah.
So when we're looking at like adult education, specifically with D&D, there was a module it was a campaign that I play tested called Adventures in ADHD. And it was made by Awfully Queer Heroes, and the whole purpose of it is your party is tricked into giving their attention to a fae individual, and so you have to go into the Feywild to go get your attention back, but you have had your attention taken away. So your character gets like a couple things that maybe they're going to do a little differently. And then every character that you run into, or every scenario you run into while you're in this pocket in the Feywild, is an NPC who is going through something. And it's related to topics like rejection sensitivity dysphoria. There's writer's block. There's maladaptive daydreaming. But it is the NPC experiencing it, and then all of the players come up with a creative solution together based on either their experiences or their ideas on how to help the NPC. And maybe it's using like their powers. There might be a combat situation. There was one I really liked where this writer, I think, had writer's block, and the pages were turning into like little origami creatures that you needed to fight off, but they kept respawning unless the writer wrote something on them. And so it was and so you had to talk to the writer and work them through like some key points. And there's like a list of like, here are some ways that you can help this individual out. Highly focused on one, the collaboration, but then also having a group conversation. So folks who have ADHD can be heard and can talk about their experiences, and then others who do not have ADHD can learn about what it's like to have that understanding and empathy. And what I saw with the group there is the first couple sessions, everyone was really quiet. Like the masks were on, and people didn't want to talk. They weren't using the quirk that they had for their character. And then one person they had a day where I think they just could not mask, and they came in and they're like, I'm having a thing, and then they were talking really fast and their character wandered off and they were like doing something, and then another person did that, and then another person did that, and then it turned into this like fun big explosion where everybody was willing to talk to each other. And this is a group of adults. A lot of them were engineers, because this is my friend circle. So like yeah, but like it was wonderful to see that growth and the comfort level. And then I've kept in touch with these people, and they have talked about their experiences more and have sorry, we're getting like the 5 minutes, I think. Yeah. So they've been able to talk about their experiences more, and then we all have this common language to talk about from the game. And this is an adult education point. This can also be used with kids, and I have incorporated this with like a lot of the characters with my child, my kids a bit. on the neurospicy side. My partner and I are also on the neurospicy side. So it's a good way to talk about that and our experiences and work through things with each other. And it was the same kind of mechanism. Like, it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons that we were using. We're using like just kind of a basic storytelling frame, but it was the same kind of material between like 6-year-old and 24-year-old. So it ended up kind of ends up like balancing out. So
I think that that's a great point when we're sort of thinking about what TTRPGs can teach regardless of age group, is that when you are crafting something, you can really intentionally adjust what success means, and that is a great way to encourage your players or your students or even your friend group or whatever to work on a particular skill set. So like in one of my games that I've been working on that is in its infancy, it's a lot about economic decision making and doing cost benefit analysis. So that is how students gain experience, is that they have to be able to analyze the costs and benefits of certain decisions and make recommendations to a hapless idiot king, right? And so instead of, again, brute forcing, they have to, and be like, this is my opinion, this is my idea, charge ahead. They have to look at both sides of an idea and imagine implications, and that way they are practicing those skills, and you can adjust that really nicely through the way that you frame a TTRPG experience.
I think. Okay.
Plenty of time. I didn't even rush you.
Oh, I thought you were
Yes.
giving us the.
I
I thought
thought
you
we
were
were
giving us the
giving
warning.
The specter of time.
Oh,
Okay.
we're one, right?
I think it is 12:30.
Oh, I thought it was
But-
one. I was going to break into the interpretive dance portion of the program. Darn, I don't think you want to. It's been a
Rush.
minute
I'm
for
not
me.
in a rush, but I feel like, yeah,
That's true.
great.
I think this might be like a good point to chat or to like ask, do you
Yeah.
have any specific questions? And this can be about specific subjects. So like if you want us to get more into like science, math, writing, history, and things like that, or if it's, about general topics, did you have any questions? Yes.
In terms of prep time, like I know that like if you're trying to teach a particular thing, you could spend like hours and hours like designing the perfect game for it and putting all of the materials together. But like how do you decide like what material merits using a tabletop game, and then how much to prepare to like help them get the most out of it without you putting like more effort into it than it ends up being worth. Does that make sense?
So, I decide
You attempting to break out?
I decide what is going to get a TTRPG based on like what I need the kids to do.
Okay.
Right? So in my like I often start with something that is hard or is not going well in my class. Those are the two things. Because usually it's hard because like I haven't figured out a way to like get kids to understand what they need to understand. And if I don't like it, it's probably because they're not engaged. So that's telling me that it's a space that needs something different. The types of like content is anything that is about a process that I can make students mimic or sort of go through. In terms of prep, I have a couple characters that are recurring characters in my classroom. One of them is Anita Hobby. Anita Hobby writes a lot of letters to the newspaper when I need to either straw man or steel man an argument for my kids to critique. So I have a couple like things that sort of show up, and when I am planning something 45 minutes before class starts, because that's just how my brain goes, I have Anita, right? She's there. Or we sometimes have Ermengarde, the like is the like sort of wizened wisdom giver, you're having a hard time, I need to give you a piece of information person that comes out. So like I rely on stuff like that. I also am a great believer, like, you need to save the town from a thing, and the only way to do it is to do the thing that I need you to practice. Like, I work with middle schoolers, so sometimes giving them the little wink wink peek behind the curtain, like, they buy into it a little bit more if they're like, okay, like,
We get it.
yeah, we get it. You're
You're in on the joke.
like they get it, right? Like, and I find that like reduces my prep time. The thing I had to let go of is the thing that you always have to let go of in teaching is you will never account for everything a kid's going to do. You will never be able to control for every outcome. It's not going to happen. So thinking about like, this is my goal. I'm really clear in my goal. Designing simple, easy to teach mechanics, or stealing simple, easy to teach mechanics. That will get them in that direction, and then build it around it. And also, like, you're not playing it for 6 years every Monday night with pizza rolls. If you have to be like, oh my gosh, a horrible thing just happened. A wizard came into the back of the room and gave everybody an extra D6 because I forgot how to do math when I made your worksheet. Nah, like, done. We've just solved every problem, right? Like, you know, let's like think about realistically, if you're in an educational setting, right? How many days are you probably going to be doing this? Like, if you're 180 days in your entire class is a TTRPG, like, that's a lot, and that's probably where you're going to get into something that's unsustainable. I break my rules all the time. I rule of cool it all the time. A kid comes up with something I didn't think about, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly what you do. How do I do it? I don't know. You're the one who came up with it. You tell me. I made the worksheet. You decided not to do the worksheet. It's your job now. And like, that is also a great way to include buy-in for those kids who like it's a little harder for them to get into like the role play, right? Yeah. You know, like, making space. The point is the learning. The point is not the system. You know, the point is, what is the kid going to learn? If they have to do it a different way, if I have to change the rules, if I have to hand out a D6, if Anita Hobby has to show up and Karen her way into something, we're fine. Apologies to anyone who's actually named Karen here. I'm sure you're lovely.
What I like to do is I have like the first game system I came up with is called Story Guider, and in the beginning, like, it just has make 3 bullet points for your story, and then this is going to be like your beginning, middle, and end. And I do the same thing when I am making educational games. It's, what are my 3 learning objectives? One will be in the beginning, one will be in the middle, and one will be in the end. Or like, if I can get them to cross over between them. And that gives me just enough structure to say, here is some kind of progression that I can have through the game. It takes me a minute usually to come up with the bullet points, and then on the side I'll kind of like jot down some rough ideas for like what I want the story to be, so I have something to kind of go on. But then I have gotten very comfortable with improv, and I will improv most of it. So basically 10 minutes worth of prep, and if I know like this is what I plan on teaching with this, like, I can just kind of write like stream of consciousness, or I can like improv in front of a group. Okay, and I just focus on, like, I can remember 3 things. That's like my whole, like, I have the internal checklist, and I only repeat the top 3 things over and over again. And so I just repeat that and check them off until we get to the end. And that can be like, if you have no time, like, I will prep more, like, if I can, but if you have no time, that's kind of my cheat sheet, like, internal process.
Like a couple basic storylines
Yeah.
in your back pocket that you could just reskin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have any?
No, I hire people smarter than me to do this part. Frankly, I outsource this to wiser people.
Well, but I think that's like actually an incredible skill set,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, but like, I think you're selling yourself short, but like,
Yeah.
there's so much good stuff out there that, like, even if you just need a story hook, like, get there's so many people out like who will do sort of things like that. Like, we have our Gaming the Systems Discord server where we're gathering all of the nerds together for our nerd uprising, for all of this, and like maybe that's our next project. Maybe our next project is educational TTRPG story hooks. That'd be wild.
Drag
I
and
think
drop.
people would.
That's so wild. I gave myself so much homework between yesterday and
There's a
today.
lot of ideas.
I have so much homework.
So, yeah. We need to find 3 and just repeat those over and over again until we like that is generally how I've been surviving the past year is 3 things at a time. So
It's very real. Just in life, like in all of life.
Right.
yeah. I think maybe this was supposed to go until 12:30. I'm confused.
It
'Cause,
was.
like,
It
Okay.
was.
Okay, so
We're
I
happy-
had in my brain one. I'm so sorry.
I am happy to continue to chat, but also there is no obligation to continue to chat if you need to be
Yeah.
someplace or get food.
The time is 12:35.
Yeah.
So next in here is at 2:00.
At 2.
Okay.
Evaluating games for the classroom. Then
Yeah.
you get to play with my board games.
Yes.
Please don't steal them. They're mine. And then at 3:30 is
3:30.
not just TTRPGs, educational TTRPGs, not just math and reading. And then at 5 is board games in the classroom, where we'll see my board games again.
They'll be back.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Please, please, please fill out the feedback
Yes.
form,
Yes. there's a
especially if
QR
you've
code.
come to multiple sessions here at the conference within a convention. We have a lot of plans for this event and for building this community, and we really want
Yeah.
we want this to grow.
Yeah. And if you attend 4 sessions, you get a certificate of attendance that
Yes.
you can potentially turn into your institution
It will
for
count as,
evaluation.
it'll be a lot, for educators, it will be like hours, like PD hours, which is sick.
So
Yeah.
there are a bunch of additional talks. So
Love
there's a QR code here for the survey. There's a whole bunch of talks all through the rest of the day. And then I also have a whole bunch of stuff on TTRPGkids. It's all free. And
That is true.
there's like at least 50 educational articles and a lot of them get into this. Like I suggest talk titles based on articles I have written, so that way I do less work. So
I love that for you.
yeah.
With 50.
Huh?
You can just sign up to join that site.
Oh, it's
Uh,
don't even have to.
This is just free. You can just like go to it. This is my special interest deep dive that I've put out there in hopes that it helps people, and I kind of have just been like posting to it. So it's all just like free library kind of stuff. And then there's all the additional talks with cool people throughout the day. So
Can I just ask you, is there anything, you mentioned specifically adolescents with OCD and
Yeah.
anxiety that
Yeah.
you specialize in. Is there any special approaches that you found that help setting up those type of games? Like, is there anything different you go into
For those
games
kids.
with? Yeah.
So the games that I run now are predominantly educational. I'm not as much directly targeting these things, but I also have OCD. So I can tell you from my experience what's helpful to me. OCD folks also tend to struggle a lot with black and white thinking and with kind of like analysis paralysis if they're staring at a blank page. So I find if I had a lot of OCD people at the table, I would definitely be giving a menu of options, especially for new players, because they are the kinds of players who are going to be likely to struggle with what is the right decision and what is the most right decision that I could make. And if it's not the most right decision, then I can't make one at all.
Yeah.
So I think providing menus of options for those players, providing a very clear plot hook, right? Providing clearly defined roles for their character.
Something you like tie in your life, or maybe
Yeah.
make a list of things for yourself.
Yeah, well, for me, you know, as an RPG player, I have found I benefit from structure, but also for me, like I struggled in school to write essays because it was an open-ended assignment with no rubric, and so I had to create my internal structure for myself. I finally had a teacher kind enough to sit down with me and be like, "This is how you're going to do it," right?
Yeah.
And have carried that into adult life. So I think that is wonderful. And then therapeutically, we know that exposure is the way out of OCD, that there, you, rather than running away from those feelings, you have to approach those feelings. And so I think building graduated exposure in an imaginal way would be how I would recommend addressing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Um, and then doing kids and teenagers in the classroom, you're in a position of authority to begin with. How do you prevent that from leading into this the RPG in terms of you against them, or I have a naturally dominant personality and I don't always realize it? How do you backpedal once you realize you're there already?
Get silly.
Yeah.
It's silly.
So
Get silly.
it takes away like the sting of whatever authority seems present in some way, like funny voices for the characters. It may like it depends on like what you're comfortable with too, because I know not everyone's like comfortable with that, but like putting on a silly hat is another one. I know Marianne had like a whole bunch of hats that she would switch between, and that's like a great way. And it's like, okay, we have a chef hat now, and now we're gonna put like a boat captain's hat, and it's like those are the different characters, but it's like silly.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're playing together, like, so it's not.
Remove some of the.
Yeah.
I'm often trying in the storylines, I'm often encouraging kids to, because a lot of it is critical thinking, and one of those things that makes it really hard for middle schoolers is that they live the entrenched power structure of school of I am a kid, therefore anything an adult hands me is like valid and useful. So when I am role playing an NPC that is like the big bad or the whatever, I always make them dumb. And because I make the sort of like holes in that person really explicit for the kids to be like, this is where you question. This is where you sort of poke. And I try, because I also, I'll give you a moment to get over the shock. I also have a big personality in my middle school classroom.
No.
I try really hard to not role play characters that are actually scary or dangerous. Because I also want it to be a problem that my kids will eventually be able to solve. And because I want the bleed to be an equalizing force for all of us, to bring like my perceived, I don't want to say authority level, like it's my name on the schedule, I'm the one who's paid to be there, my authority level is my authority level, but the imbalance, I want the bleed to lessen the imbalance, not increase it. Right? I want it to bring us close. I want them to be like, Miss Genova, where in England was your accent from? And I'd be like, I don't know, mate. Like, it's like not a real thing, and that, again, it's removing a barrier. We're turning the temperature down. And then when we have bleed at the end of a session, it's usually positive feelings as opposed to like, I'm a person who actually feels oppressed by the way that school is set up, and then I just had to role play being oppressed by you for the last 30 minutes. Right? I purposefully try not to do that.
Well, it seems to me I always get the one kid that memorizes the entire book.
Sure.
So when I'm doing it, he goes, page 37 says, I always stop and think, that's a guideline.
Mm-hmm.
But
We're homebrew.
That gets them tweaked, and they get really frustrated because I'm doing things outside what the rule book says.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to stress, it's only a guideline. Gary Gygax told me that when I was 15 years old. It's only a guideline. And they're like, who's Gary Gygax? And that's how I freak out. But as one kid said, you've been playing D&D longer than my parents have. Yes, I know.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you deal with the kids that they can't get outside that rule?
Sometimes I say, you know what, you're right. And I'll say you're right, and I'll say like, and sometimes I will say you're right, and I will go to like, because I do think that it's really important for kids to know that adults can be wrong about things. And sometimes I'll like try to rope that kid in where I'll be like, hey, we're going to rule of cool this. And we're going to take bets on how many rules I'm going to break today during session. And what's your over under? Well, I think you're going to do it more than 10 times because we're doing combat and you don't pay attention to combat rules. And I'll be like, all right, so if it's more than 10, you get a lollipop.
Yeah.
And if it's less than 10, you have to put up all my chairs at the end of club. You know what I mean? And that way I'm seeing the kid doing the rule book, but we're not bogging the rest of the group down in crunch. And sometimes like that's like what that kid usually wants is
Getting the validation of, I know that you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to do it here, but you are like.
Right.
Yeah.
And that we're not going to do it and it's going to be okay that we're not
Yes.
doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have had like a couple situations with that, and what I recently have done, there's a group of tweens that I am GMing for, and I will try to give one of the players a job
Yeah.
of like, okay, I'm having a hard time keeping track of all of the area of effect things that have been laid down on the field. Could you help me with that? Or do you remember what the grapple rules are? Because like and you just ask once in a while, and then giving a heads up, like, okay, we're gonna have you all roll for initiative. As a heads up, this is a homebrew bad guy. He's a wizard. He has legendary actions because he's really strong. So we're gonna play it like that. So it's gonna be a little bit like a dragon. You explain a little bit of the thought process, so it does take out of the immersion, but that's okay too, I think, because it does teach them how to be GMs later.
Yeah.
I have found it's a lot harder with my adult players. There are two that I think have memorized all of the books, including the numbers for every creature. And so I have to say, this is a homebrew creature, or we are using this stat block that I found online. Here is a picture of it. And we're getting rid of this line in it. And that's what we're using. And it does break some of the immersion, but it also gives that player a level of comfort with it. And then I will also like ask that player for advice or like ask questions while playing. So
I think.
and,
Oh yes. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
I think figuring out the sort of why behind the behavior, right, the function of the behavior, can be really helpful because I think oftentimes it is a way to like connect or be helpful or bond, right? Are they trying to connect in a way with this group? In which case, I think sometimes validating and also giving a job can be helpful. We had a girl like this who like we dubbed the recap queen because she also just had an immense like nearly photographic memory, and so she could at the beginning of session remind everybody of what happened last session when her peers could not remember even just the faintest idea of anything that had gone down. She knew everything. She knew what everyone's characters had done. She knew where they were in the story. And it helped her channel that into a way that was a little bit more like socially adaptive. But I also knew for this player that there was a sense of safety in predicting what was coming next. And so sometimes when she would bring up rules or frustrations about that, it was because particularly during combat, she thought she had predicted the way that something was going to go. And if the rule wasn't that way, she felt betrayed by the DM. It felt like an affront almost to her safety. And so I do think also previewing the times and the rationale for why you're going off book
Deeper in what the reason.
can be helpful, and you may not still necessarily like cater to that player's desire to have it be 100% rules as written, but I think flagging for them like you do in advance, I would guess would have made, I can think of a couple of situations for this player where she really reacted poorly to new DMs doing things that weren't by the book, and I think it would have made her feel more safe to know in advance, like, hey, just so you know, we're fighting a big bad today, and like I don't remember the resistance like that this monster has, or it's going to be different, or I'm going to fudge it a little bit, right?
So I spent a weekend making Dave's monster manual. I just put it down. Took my monster manual, put it in my bag.
Yeah.
We used this,
Sometimes it can
And
be
they
a
just
safety
went,
thing.
"Uh-oh."
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know your name was actually Dave.
I
Oh, that's really funny.
had
I
my own notebook. I filled it up. This is Dave's monster.
I love that so much.
I reworked everything.
Wow.
50 or 60 of the
Dang.
features. And I said, this book, this monster manual is no longer being used.
Wow.
And so
Burn
then
it.
they knew that they couldn't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
these were adults.
Yeah.
long term. I mean, these weren't anybody that was any
Yeah.
issues. It was just like group.
Just your
It was a
friends.
group that was getting ready to quit the ending. So
Yeah.
Oh, it would drive me nuts.